If it didn't break earlier when I got it, it's not gonna break.
All right. Call finance into session. If you would, take a look at the meeting, the minutes from last week's meeting, and if there's a motion to adopt, we will entertain that.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes are adopted. New business, item number 1, authorization to disperse from District 2 improvement funds. Counselor Howard.
These funds were utilized actually this past Saturday at the McDonough Hughes Center, and it helped sponsor the back to school drive, and we had more than 150 children come through.
Cool.
So, it was a great event, and we had food, and of course, it was at the indoor playground unit, which I'm still excited and proud of, and so everyone had a great time.
Good deal.
So, yeah.
Okay, any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, funds are approved. Item
Thank
number
you.
2, economic development proposal, the venue. Mr. Thompson, Ms. Moore.
All right, council, hope you guys are doing today. This is the venue. Brian Finnison over here is the owner of it. He also owns Treehouse Nurseries. This is the property across from Social Park that they've been under construction for a little while, but there's been a lot of buzz about this. He is currently in the county. We've actively been trying to recruit him into the city. And so I want to go through a quick presentation with you guys. This is the mock-up of what his architect drew. He's got an all-local team of contractor, the GC is local, the engineers local, and the architects also local. This is going to be several, I guess, food halls or food buildings, small restaurants that don't have the indoor seating. There's also going to be a small stage for some live music. Here's another rendering of it. I don't know if any of you went to the rodeo this past weekend. Several hundred people were out there right across from this. This could be a huge asset. I think a great amenity for those people up there who are visiting, especially with all the money that is going into the all-inclusive playground at Soco Park and just some of the other improvements that are going
Well,
on there.
there's 500 people, I know every Tuesday and Thursday night. I'm bringing my kids to trying to get in and out, so.
Absolutely, Mary. You know,
If I could legally be a business partner with you, I would do it in a heartbeat, so. I
Have
think
we
it's a
already,
great idea.
have we already booked the Dance Center TikTok night? I kinda like that. Is that already happened, Brian?
Yep.
The mayor and I, we'll all come out there and do a TikTok.
Yeah.
this is a site plan. This is Watermelon Road. You have Soco Park over here, parking lot in front with the food stalls, and then the stage right there in the middle. And these are some of the buildings currently that are out on site. And then here's an aerial just showing you the relationship to the site is in yellow with the park, obviously. in green.
Can I make a point real quick?
Absolutely.
Would you mind? The reason why, well, part of the reason why our team is recommending this, and Eric and Liz have done a fantastic job. Y'all heard me mention the northeast sewer line that we talked about earlier. Our goal is to run that here and then upwards there, so we can continue to grow our city. Certainly as much as we can annex in along this route is good for the next 30 years for the city of Tuscaloosa, because there's another water authority on this side. And it's important that we continue this northward growth, and I think this is one of those important projects in our growth plan as part of framework and overall calculus.
And also Mrs. Price and her team, as part of the framework, have gone through and proposed for this all to be commercial coming through here on the other side.
Is that
So
parcel
where's the-
currently in the county? Or is it
PJ?
county?
This is all county. The church, so the red line is the city limits. The church to the north is in the city. The park is obviously in the city, and then recently the gas station down on the corner is annexed.
Church in Tuscaloosa is in the city.
It is.
Where is the sewer line that you were talking about, Mayor?
It would,
Where's the intent to run it?
the intent would be, and I'm giving a bad example, so the engineers, we need to.
We won't hold you to,
But,
in the engineering level of precision.
There's, and Mike, you correct me if I'm wrong, I know we got a sewer line that crosses here into a lift station there, but I think the goal is from somewhere around the Old Colony intersection
Down
to,
there.
Yeah, to,
right there.
okay, back down all the way up that would eventually run to Sharp's Landing Road, and then north up Sharp's Landing Road.
Toward Crown Point and all that, toward the lake.
Yes, sir, to take in that, that loop up there, and then, you know, grow our, we need to grow,
Yeah.
our sewer capacity, and so, again, this project gives us another annex piece of property, which is very important as we move forward, and it's gonna be a great economic development project too. And I can tell you again, I don't, Brian can sell it, he don't need me to sell it, but as a parent up there that's up there 2 to 3 times a week, and there's hundreds of kids, and if there was a place to drop by and get ice cream or food or something like that,
Cause there's nothing up there,
there's nothing up there.
unless you go to the convenience store, right?
Or unless you go to
Grocery store.
Northport, and
True.
go to, no offense to my good friends in Northport, but when Eli wants to go to TCBY, I'm paying Northport sales tax.
Nope.
So-
Do that.
To quote Harrison Taylor, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
They don't understand that.
He did get quoted.
You did get quoted. All right, I'm sorry.
That's fine. So these are just some of the Circle Park improvements. I'm not gonna bother you, I know you guys have all seen these before as part of Elevate. But, you know, just, this is, we feel that this is gonna bring a great amenity to the area. To the mayor's point, try to capture some of those dollars that are up there, you know, 2 to 3 nights a week, all day on Saturday and Sunday sometimes. When the rodeo was there, Brian was telling us before this meeting that you had, you know, several hundred people show up, many of them out there camping. Yeah, they pull these, you know, $100,000 RVs up there in fifth wheel, and they're basically living across the street in Circle Park. That was it. Are there any questions?
Have y'all done any, analysis on what you think the potential sales tax is gonna be, or is that something you could discuss in public, or
Brian, would you like to?
do you know, Brian, have you looked at that a little bit?
Our initial projections for year one is we're trying to get around the $3 million revenue standpoint. So, you know, you take 10% number of that.
So technically, if you're correct, we're gonna pay for this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
3% of that number is gonna be
It's
90,000.
90,000, that's right.
Yeah, and that's not the property tax, business license, or the advantage of us annexing.
Or our share of the county too, right?
That's right, cause if you don't,
We get part of that too.
we get 3.57%, the 0.57 being the
It's
county.
county, so that's total.
But if it stays in the county, then we get, we get 14.3%, no, I'm sorry, 19% of the 3-cent countywide sales tax.
The other thing I did say was the treehouse does around 1.5 million. And so this is annexing in that revenue also.
Also
is
on top of
business
that.
license. And so it's not just the venue, you'd be annexing in.
And property
existing
tax,
business.
So the treehouse.
Property tax too. So treehouse will be coming in, treehouse in the county too, correct? So it'll be in the city. That's good. Yes, sir. That's good money, John, that smells good.
So where are we in this project?
So it-
Where is the project? I mean, not physically, where is it in its development?
So we wanted to bring it to you guys today to discuss it. Brian is still gonna need to annex in and then go through the rezoning process as well. He will be in front of you guys, again, lady, a few weeks for his alcohol license. Construction times have kind of gotten thrown off, and so he's gonna have to come back to renew it or to get another ABC license.
You've already done that once.
Already did that. I was a little bit premature on that, didn't realize the construction would time.
So what we would like to do is move forward as a team towards an economic incentive agreement. We would have to, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, go through the 772 public hearing process. But if the council feels comfortable with this, we just want to get the ball rolling and done and get Brian through the process, and so he's ready to knock it out of the park, and we're there with them, supporting them.
Okay, so today's just making us aware of what's going on and see if we're kind of nodding up and down towards getting the 772 hearing, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, thank you, guys.
We'll start the process on our end.
Absolutely.
Okay?
Anything else in terms of agenda items. So, Ms. Standridge or Brandy, as she found, when do we start hearing, there's been some conversations about when the, well, actually, I don't think it's at Finance Committee, but we're gonna hear from the agencies requesting the big five, and then there's some other requests for either those that are new or,
Yeah, 2 new ones and then community service programs, right?
Yes, sir.
okay, and are we gonna do a special council session for that, or is the vision that listening takes place in a finance
I
committee?
think so.
So what,
I would think so, Lee.
one of our thoughts was, there is a time frame where there is, there's a projects committee meeting and a finance committee meeting and then nothing else afterwards. So we can maybe extend that one a little bit further and do the new ones at that time. And then the other big five will kind of like be peppered throughout, and just regular finance committee meetings, like one at a time.
Okay.
I will alert, just because this was something that I needed to alert the committee to anyway. We did get a late submission for agency funding that I just want to make the committee aware of. The district attorney's office has applied for $200,000 for agency funding as well. So we will include that in all of the consideration materials for the committee.
So here's why I brought it up, and I would like, if it's, yeah,
If the district attorney submitted late and we're gonna hear him, then TES who submitted late, we need to hear them as well. Mr. Chairman.
TES hasn't submitted anything to us, and they did not say they wanted
Well,
to.
they wanted to because they sent me an email, and the email was also through, community development. So what I'm going to ask them to do, if we're going to hear the DA, then I'm going to ask them to make sure that they send their proposal as well.
This is strictly a council
Yeah.
decision, so
Because I want everybody to be treated fairly.
But I do want to say two distinctions on this. Number one, the DA did submit it on time, but to a wrong email address, a faulty email address. So they did try to submit it on
how
time.
does the DA have a faulty?
Well, they said
email
they
address?
Really?
they
What
forwarded
is
it to a previous.
Okay,
employee's
okay, I got you, you mean
different.
the
Yeah.
note that goes in for agency funding.
The second thing is that the district attorney's office is a very key part of public safety in our community, and we've had some discussions with recently on making Tuscaloosa safer, and it's just a level, orders of magnitude. Again, that is nothing to TES, but in terms of, I think hearing from the DA.
And I think we do need to hear from him. I don't disagree with that.
Is that
He was
money
really-
gonna?
I don't disagree, but I do disagree with the precedents that we set, regardless of whether you are the DA. I want to be able to talk to presidents
So it was
and
it was
kings
my
and queens.
impression that.
Then I want to be able to talk to people who may not have as much clout.
You
It was-
talk to kings, queens, yeomans.
It doesn't matter to me.
Serfs. You have at it, man. So.
It was my understanding that TES had applied for CDBG funding. They did not want to apply for agency funding with the city. That was when we discussed that previously, is that they wanted to apply for CDBG funding, and they did, and were considered under that grant funding and not under the agency funding bucket that we're talking about.
Okay.
What would you?
Yes, not to leave them out at all.
So the only thing I wanted to communicate about these agency funding requests that we're hearing is, and I hope you'll, since this really is driven by the whole council, not just the finance committee, that the whole council will be present, and we'll just
Absolutely.
carry on from finance. But
Sure.
I would like, if anybody is asking for money, I would like to see their financials and see them in time to have intelligent questions when they get here. So I don't know if that's a communique that goes out from the city clerk or from
So that all
London.
that should actually be in the agency funding booklet with all of the applications that you've received. He sent that email out the week after we gave you the full listing anyway. So all of those financial information should be included in that packet. And it's all bookmarked, so you can go straight to where that one agency's packet is in that huge, I know it's like 400 pages, but it's all bookmarked in a table of contents. You just click on the agency name and it'll take you right to their packet, and all the financial information should be included with their application materials.
And I would like to get y'all's advice, because agency funding's been one of those over the years that we've never really found a perfect system. And so it's been one of those things where I'll go in, and maybe because I'm working with, like this year, I'm working with Dr. Daria on a concept and an idea. So as part of my budget presentation, you will see a recommendation for an increase, and then I will present what that increase would go for. But most agencies will be straightforward. If anything, several of the agencies that in my budget may get a COLA very similar or an increase very similar to the city, because what they're doing is quasi-city. If they weren't doing it, we would be doing it, so we just kind of treat them along the same.
Mayor, does each one still meet with you throughout the summer like they used to do?
We don't do that. We stopped and we just used the comprehensive. We've really improved the reporting over the years.
Yeah.
But my question is, what would you want me to point out in my budget submittal to the council? Because I don't want you to think, oh, I wasn't aware the mayor increased para by 2.5%, but only increased the library by 1%, and we're presenting 1,000 different things. And you know what, you all know the budget. You got, there's hundreds of thousands of transactions a year. There are thousands of line items in our budget. I just want to know what you want to know as it relates to what we present in agency funding as part of our budget. Because frankly, if you don't ask, we will say in terms of, it's in your booklet. You know what I mean? But
Yeah, and that booklet is like that.
But if you don't ask, that 1% increase is not necessarily gonna be the biggest thing we're working on in the budget picture. So just think about that. We've got time. I don't think we present our budget to the 25th.
5th of August.
I'll give you the first thing that occurs to me, is, and I'll use the school system as an example, since you just mentioned that. An incremental add in a request doesn't really strike my attention, but was it last year or the year before, when all this COVID money came rolling in, there were all sorts of wild rumors about gigantic sums that went to the school board. And I have no idea if those are accurate, inaccurate, or if they were sightlined for only certain, but so in the example of the school board, that's the thing that would be on my mind is, was there a windfall of COVID money that came in? And if so, where is it now? So that's on the school board. On some of these new ones that we're getting, I mean, like the DA's office, I don't know that we really asked for financials, but I would want Hayes to show us what his sources of fundings are and why he needs city money. And and whether it's food banks or Phoenix houses or anybody else, they're all good causes. But what I would personally have objection to is if we're giving taxpayer money to organizations that have stockpiled up plenty of money on their own, but they don't want to spend theirs. And there's no association with that statement to any ones I mentioned. I just mean, when I'm seeing these, my concern is, okay, what do you do? Where do you get your money from? How much has come in the last 2 or 3 years? How much has gone out? And why do you need taxpayer of Tuscaloosa money as opposed to money you've got stored away in some capital fund or some reserve account or retained earnings? Those are the things that occur to me that I personally want to get into when somebody needs money from the city.
My only, I think that some of that will have to be handled, I guess, like direct questions to them, because a lot of the information that we will have will be audited or CPA reviewed financial statements, which will normally be about 1.5 years behind. from current activity. So like, prime example, we have, the latest that we have from Para, their financial statements are for the year ended, September 30, 2020, sorry. And so for you to be able to take 2020 fiscal year numbers and apply it to what they're kind of currently doing today, that's gonna be a big leap. So we can provide the financials that we have that have been filed with us. I mean, literally their CPA signed off on that in March of 2022. So that's their most recent audit that they have. For you to be able to make that leap from the financials that we have on file for them to what they're doing today, that's gonna have to be a question and answer session, an interview.
That's fine, and I would, my interest in looking at those financials ahead of time is to drive the question and answer session. So, using Para as an example, kind of, that's one where what I'm wanting to see is Gary's got, they generate some of their own revenues, they get money from Northport, money from the county, money from the city, and then they've got a set of expenses. Is it short, over, how much short, what are you raising for those are just the things that I want to see.
I want to put a thought in your mind, and after we get through the budget, maybe we pencil it in for a finance committee in October. But from a process standpoint, 8% of our general fund, 7%, 8% of our general fund is agency funding. So 8 cents out of every dollar that we spend on non-water and sewer actually goes to agencies outside the city. That's a pretty healthy sum of money that gets spent outside the city of Tuscaloosa.
Mhm.
I mean, outside the governance of the city council. And if you think about it, you know, all year, the other 92%, we really manage on a daily basis. And Carly's team, I mean, there's never much that's in the way of the budget presentation to y'all that's really, I think, anything earth-shattering or surprising, anything that comes up that you hadn't had months of awareness to. But we condense, by matter of practice, agency funding into a budget submittal by May or June.
By May, they're required to apply by May.
And then we get these large packets, and then they're scanned and looked at, but not reviewed or deep dive. Many of those documents are from audits that are a year and a half behind. In some cases, they don't have audits. All they can provide is financial statements. And then, we're asked, and we do too, to put new people on here to come have meetings with us. I'd like to get y'all's idea on what we could do collectively to better manage that process, because what it becomes is last minute eventually as we get towards that end of the budget. Now with the school system or EDA, Para, we have a long history. That's a little bit, those are easier ones. But,
They're bigger numbers, but they're easier dynamics to get our arms around.
Yeah, so I just want y'all as we go through it to think about it, because we always do it, not last minute, that's not fair to the process, but you know what I'm saying. It kind of gets put in as one of the last pieces of the puzzle, and yet it's one of the bigger numbers that we deal with in our budget. So I'd love to get your idea and input on that.
Maybe we could do it like Shark Tank.
That's a great show, by the way.
So, and we'll get 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 organizations who are doing great work, but they're doing that great work spread out over 9 counties or 11 counties, and the only people's money we've got are the people who pay taxes in the city of Tuscaloosa. So, my interest immediately starts to zoom into, okay, what are you doing in the city of Tuscaloosa, so that we can make that
Distinction.
our proportionate, because our taxpayers don't want to be paying for stuff in Greene County or Gordo or wherever else.
And most of those, like cerebral palsy and different ones, they get money from these other counties too.
Those
their
are just
services.
the kinds of questions
Absolutely.
I would like them to be
I
able to
always ask
answer.
that, yeah,
And straight, short answers.
because we don't want to be paying for residents in Pickens County, for example.
It is always good, Walt, to me. Last year, when we looked at all this stuff, trying to figure out the rhyme or reason in with the discussion with you, here's why we never really had a lot of that I remember last year. You know, we had hearings where people came in, but I mean, I think it would be good, especially now that we're all a year under of experience or more, some of us 26, right, Kip? 26 years, that we look at this and say, here's what I'm thinking this year, this is why I think we ought to take this number, we ought to leave this here, you know, this is why we ought to add this agency funding here, just have that discussion, because then I think each one of us needs to kind of tell you what our expectations are, and I don't know that we did that last year. About, these are some things I'd really like to see you look at, for example, and we need to have those discussions too, I think. Because each one of us probably has some priorities we would like to see the city fund more in, right?
Exactly.
I mean, I'm sure we will,
The agencies,
in agency.
if agencies were a department of the city, I think they'd be the fourth biggest or fifth
Fifth biggest.
fifth
Wow.
biggest department of the city.
Wow.
Used to
So
be
it's,
full.
it's a huge, it really is a big number.
That's a surprise though, if you think.
Yeah, and
That's why it's
again,
important.
Yeah, it's very.
it's something we kind of, as we get through the budget, and I'm as guilty as anyone, that you're really focused, I know I am, on the water and sewer and 92% of city operations, and then you get to agencies, and it's probably been.
Is there any way that maybe, if you say the actual budget submittal is whatever date that is, that maybe a couple weeks out, you can give us something, say this is what our thoughts are? Before we have where then we could give you feedback and say, hey, I'd like to see this I'd like to see us give $50,000 to this, or just kind of see where everybody is on that. Is that
Well, I
something
think
we could do that might make it smoother too? I don't know.
It's in your packet, but I'll ask Carly if somebody on our team can just send you what we funded agencies last year. And I guess
I think
Well, I
that's
think
on
we
the-
got
that,
that's
didn't
on
we,
the
Carly? Yeah.
spreadsheet.
Mhm.
But I mean, kind of what you're,
What you're
I
thinking
don't-
about this year.
I don't know when you decide that though.
I'm in the process now. Quite frankly, don't hold me to this. What's today, 19th or 20th? Right now, the school system, and it's really something that came out of the summit at the chamber. That's been the one that probably will had the most significant price tag. My thinking and moving EDA back up equal to the county's funding, I think that will be another one that would be a major change. And then with, right now, again, with para, library, TTS, moving them with the COLA is what I'm thinking, and everyone else probably at prior year levels. But I haven't gotten to that point in my budget process. That's today's thinking based off the revenues that we have available. Now, I will say, and Mr. Busby touched on this earlier, if we decide we're gonna take a close look at next month's revenue collection, now I think I get one more revenue number before I have to present my budget to the council. Last month's revenue over prior year was only about 1% sales tax revenue. Yeah. If I get another 1% or so, then we may look at reducing down our budget just because of the unknown. That can change a lot of our calculus.
Gotcha.
And that would match the corporate reporting coming out of the business world right now as big companies are beginning to report. They're not doing the kind of sales increases that they had grown accustomed to. They're slowing or flat or going down slightly.
People are a little concerned about spending money based on where inflation is.
And then you put on top of that, it's not so much, it is so much the 1% growth rate, if that's the new normal, but then the 6, 7, 8, 9% inflation. And so that's something that could change, and quite frankly, my budget to you, you may need to make, because you'll have another month's worth of revenue numbers after I present to you. So this is it's a little more trickier than we wanted it to be. I thought this might be a smooth landing 2 or 3 months ago. Now all of a sudden we've got a little crosswinds.
Well, in respect for what Mr. Fail has got on his agenda at
Thank you.
4 o'clock.
It's a lot.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.